Games in the Super Mario series have sold over 310 million copies, making it the best-selling video game series in history. Games like Super Mario Bros. For the NES, Super Mario 64 for the Nintendo 64, and Super Mario 3D World for the Wii U all have helped Mario become the most recognizable character in gaming. But how and why did this Italian plumber get so popular? Find out with this look at the history of Super Mario. Before we can talk about Goombas, Toads, and the Mushroom Kingdom, we must first learn a little about what led up to it all. The year was 1980, and the toy company Nintendo was trying to join in on the video game craze going on in America. Minoru Arakawa, the son-in-law of Nintendo president Hiroshi Yamauchi, had just become the newly established Nintendo of America's first ever president. Nintendo established Nintendo of America to break into the American video game industry, and the new president, Arakawa, put all bets on the arcade game Radarscope. Nintendo's first venture in the video game industry started in the 1970s, but they had yet to have any real success. This was all supposed to change with Radarscope, an arcade game similar to the hit game Space Invaders, and it was released in America in November 1980. In Japan, where Radarscope was released a year earlier, the game was popular for some time, but in America, it was a flop and left Nintendo with 2,000 unsold units. Now, Nintendo of America was in trouble, so Arakawa then convinced his father-in-law to turn those unsold units into a new game that would become a hit and save the newly established Nintendo of America. President of Nintendo, Hiroshi Yamauchi, turned to two men, one who created the hit handheld game Game & Watch, Gunpei Yokoi, and the other was a man who had just worked on his first game, Radarscope. This man was Nintendo staff artist Shigeru Miyamoto. Using the hardware and surplus Radarscope cabinets, Miyamoto designed his first ever video game, called Donkey Kong. Miyamoto based his first game on the Popeye love triangle, but Nintendo was unable to get the license to use Popeye characters, so Miyamoto changed Popeye the Sailor Man into a carpenter leaping barrels and scaling his construction site to rescue Lady, who had been kidnapped by a giant gorilla named Donkey Kong. Miyamoto composed the music and designed animated intermissions to advance the story. Everything had to stay within Radarscope's hardware limitations. Chips and conversion kits were shipped to America in 1981. Arakawa, his wife, and a few others changed 2,000 Radarscopes into Donkey Kongs. At first, the main character of the game's name was Osan, Japanese for middle-aged guy. Miyamoto wanted to name the carpenter Mr. Video, but by the time Donkey Kong was finished, he was simply named Jumpman. But Arakawa knew the game's characters needed better names than Jumpman and Lady for the game to be successful in America. Don James, now the Nintendo of America Executive Vice President of Operations, was part of the group of employees who gave Mario his name. In February 2012, he told the story in Game Life Podcast episode 18. He said, "A long time ago, they sent Donkey Kong over to us when we were just a little tiny warehouse down in South Center, Seattle. We were standing out there, myself and Mr. Minoru Arakawa, who was president of Nintendo of America at the time, and the character in Donkey Kong was called Jumpman in Japan. And they said, 'What do you want his name to be in the US?' And so we sat there and we thought. The guy who owned the lease on the facility was named Mario Siegel, and so we thought, this guy is a recluse. No one's ever actually met him. Wouldn't it be a great joke if we named the character Mario? And so we said, that's great, and we sent the telex to Japan, and that's how Mario got his name. Lady, who Mario would be rescuing, was then changed to Pauline, named after Polly James, wife of Nintendo of America employee Don James. The name Donkey Kong came from Miyamoto, meaning stupid gorilla. In an interview with Nintendo Online magazine, Miyamoto said he got donkey from looking up Manuk, Japanese for stupid, in an English dictionary. He picked Kong because the character was a gorilla. Mario got most of his look due to technology limitations faced in 1981. To avoid the difficulty of having Mario's hair move realistically, Miyamoto gave Mario a hat. Also in Game Over, Miyamoto admits, "I could not come up with a hairstyle so good." Miyamoto gave Mario a mustache and oversized nose to make Mario's nose more noticeable. So, was Donkey Kong a hit? Did it save Nintendo of America like they so desperately needed? Yes. The initial 2,000 units sold, and more orders were made. Arakawa began manufacturing the electronic components in Redmond, where the NOA headquarters were, because waiting for shipments from Japan was taking too long. By October, Donkey Kong was selling 4,000 units a month, and by late June 1982, Nintendo had sold 60,000 Donkey Kong machines overall and earned $180 million. Nintendo earned another $100 million on the game in its second year of release, totaling $280 million. It remained Nintendo's top seller into summer of 1983. Donkey Kong also sold steadily in Japan. The game was also ported to many different home consoles that were out at the time, since Nintendo did not have one yet. It did have a version on Gunpei Yokoi's Game & Watch, and later on the Famicom and NES. Next, Nintendo R&D 1, the same development team that made Donkey Kong, with Miyamoto coming back as director and Gunpei Yokoi as producer, released Donkey Kong Jr. in 1982. But this time, Mario would be the antagonist. Mario has captured Donkey Kong and put him in a cage, and the player, controlling Donkey Kong's son, Donkey Kong Jr., must rescue his father from Mario by working his way through a series of stages. Mario attempts to stop Donkey Kong Jr. by releasing animals and putting obstacles in his way. Like the original, the sequel also sold very well.
I can't sleep, I never do. Then your memory seeps, and I dream about you. So I'll just stay up all night and pray that someday I can find someone new. I go drink before she'll pay the tab. Then I'll take just one more Laura tab. It's been a year, this is what I fear. I look back, it's just